People who are getting tattooed are not necessarily just criminals and bikers and gangsters and whatnot. You know, I mean, you have grandmothers getting tattooed and like anybody and everybody these days. But I think these days, especially, some kids are going into school thinking I'm going to be a tattoo artist, and they might go to art school to get the visual or illustrative skills that they might need or want to learn. I kind of just fell into the whole thing. I never really had any ideas about that. I just needed a job while I was going to school, and luckily fell into tattooing, which has kind of been pretty good to me since. Things that I learned and did in college weren't related to or really have much to do with tattooing. When I fell into tattooing, I actually had to learn how to become more of an illustrator, how to draw more objective, figurative kind of things, you know, which I never really was into much, but being a tattoo artist or being in that world kind of made me learn how. There's been great tattoo artists forever, you know, whether they came from whatever kind of background. Well, I just make these drawings using fire and to burn marks into the page. The biggest parallel and thing that they have in common is the physical process. They're very process-oriented means of making artwork. First of all, tattooing, you have you know, a very physical, tactile process of, like, you know, cutting, puncturing the skin with needles, and then depositing ink, which involves a lot of you know, like kind of really physical, kind of tactile experience. And then also the fire is like I'm kind of burning paper with, you know, a fire, which is a very chaotic, uncontrollable substance. I've always been into like very kind of physical processes and process-oriented ways of making artwork. And both of them also are very kind of direct and, in a sense, unalterable. Like when you make a line tattooing, it's there. You know what I mean? You can't erase it, you can't change it. And the same way with when I burn a line into a piece of paper, you know what I mean? Once it's there, it's done. So they're very kind of like direct, kind of stream of consciousness ways of creating artwork. The whole Angry Black thing came about a little bit, you know, after the drawing stuff. And sometimes the ideas or the aesthetics kind of cross over a little bit, you know, more so maybe from the tattoo language and vocabulary into the drawings than vice versa, because I have yet to really try to burn people up or anything. Imagery from the tattooing, that kind of vocabulary, sometimes I kind of start to work into my drawings, which is great, you know what I mean? And sure, you know, I mean, a big field of black, whether it's ink or charcoal, is good no matter what. Luisa, she works at her studio. She's great, you know. She's been a good friend of ours and everything. And a couple of years ago, actually, here at the convention, we did this other Azteca kind of skull, because she's from Mexico and stuff like this. So she's always wanted this kind of work, and I've always kind of been doing this kind of like Azteca pre-Hispanico kind of stuff. It's this kind of vocabulary you don't really see so often in tattooing. I mean, you do in certain places of the world, like for example Mexico and South America and whatnot, but not so much here, you know. And it's not necessarily your typical kind of like Chicano lowrider or kind of like Mexican stuff, you know. It's a little different, you know, because it's a little more roots, a little more like the Aztec kind of stuff. So it's kind of specific, but it's still, I mean, it's still really fun to do.
Just something that represents the dead, that we're not afraid of it, we always celebrate it. And it's Aztec, and it was, you know, was done by David, that is a great artist. He integrated the rabbit and the hen in there, you know. He just thought it was going to be cool, and he put it all together. You
really kind of affect people, you know. It's like this kind of profound thing that happens to people when you tattoo them. And I think the thing that I've learned from tattooing people for 10 years now is that, like, the bottom line is that basically it makes people happy, you know what I mean? It's like people get tattooed, and sometimes it's funny because I can't even explain it a lot of times.
For me, when I started getting my tattoos, and, you know, I dressed up, I put a dress on, I was like, wow, I really feel even better than before, you know? I was very insecure, and now somehow my tattoos make me feel more comfortable with myself, you know? And I really think, I don't know, I feel much better. I feel like I look more feminine than before. I love it. I love my tattoos.
It's like this kind of profound kind of like means of changing a person's life in a way, you know what I mean?